let's talk about life-changing books. When I was 19, I remember thinking, I wish there were a book on how to live. And I meant it. I was constantly out of energy, my digestion was poor, dealing with difficult emotions seemed nearly impossible, not to mention making new friends, and on top of everything, I was drowning, literally drowning in the simplest tasks possible. Fast forward to today, it's 2025 and I'm 27 now, and I can honestly say that something fundamental has shifted. I'm much better at working without overworking myself. I feel much more aligned with myself and the world around me. I have honestly incredible relationships with my family and friends, and my health has never been better. Turns out there was a book on how to live. In fact, there were several. And in today's video, I want to talk about 7 books that were not only perspective changing, but also gave me practical tools on how to master this decade in a way that feels both meaningful and sustainable. Starting with the book number 1. When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. This book came to me at exactly the right moment, although I didn't realize it back then. The core message is both beautifully simple and terrifying at the same time. Things will fall apart, and that's actually fine. Think about it. As children, we develop this belief that the universe somehow magically revolves around us and our desires, that everything always works in our favor. And you know what? That's actually a great belief to have. It's the foundation for optimism and resilience. But our 20s have this pesky little way of introducing us to a more complex reality. Whether it's loss, heartbreak, rejection, or health challenges, life inevitably presents us with situations that don't fit into our younger version's understanding of how the world should work. For me, it was incredibly hard to accept at first, but that's what Pema Chodron helped me understand. Acknowledging that things fall apart doesn't make us pessimistic, it actually makes us appreciate people and things in our lives more. And from that place, you can build something more solid. And the book actually does a great job at teaching you how to maintain your center when everything around you feels incredibly uncertain. It's all about developing this inner stability that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Moving on to the book number 2. The Red Book by Carl Jung. I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't understand every single thing in this book because it's just so dense and metaphorical, and it feels more like a dream or somebody's personal journal rather than an actual book. But that's exactly why it's so powerful. Jung wrote this book during what he called his confrontation with the unconsciousness, and it really feels like a permission to explore parts of yourself that you might have been overlooking before. Why is this particularly relevant for your 20s? 2 things. First, individuation. Jung makes an emphasis on the fact that you should be becoming who you really are, not who you think you should be or who others think you should be, but you should embody your own essence. And your 20s are literally a decade-long process of figuring this thing out. The book gives you a framework for understanding that this process is both challenging and necessary. Second, I think it addresses something many of us struggle with: the tendency to lean too heavily into either logic or emotion. Some get hyper-rational, dismissing their feelings as irrelevant, while others get caught up in their emotions and ignore practical considerations. Jung argues that wholeness comes from integrating both. The world doesn't operate on pure logic or pure emotion, it's a combination of both. Learning to honor both your rational mind and your intuition creates a more complete way of being. Moving on to the next book. The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. If you're going to read only one book about productivity, let it be this one. What I love about The Goal is that it's written as a novel, so you're not getting lectured on productivity techniques or tools, but rather you follow a character's journey, a hero journey if you may, which makes the insight feel way more applicable to real life. The book centers around a few key ideas that completely changed how I view productivity. Know your goal and organize everything around it. This sounds obvious, but most of us are terrible at this, myself included. We say yes to way too many projects that don't align with what we really want to achieve. This book teaches you how to be ruthless about your priorities, and not in a harsh way, but in a clear, intentional way. Productivity isn't about being busy all the time. This was a revelation for me. I used to think that being productive meant filling every moment with tasks. But this book shows that this approach is inefficient. The key takeaway? Know when to take a break. Your system should evolve with you. Everything changes. People change, circumstances change, even goals change. It only makes sense that your system reflects these changes. What worked for you 6 months ago might not work for you now, and that's totally fine. The book encourages you to regularly evaluate your system and make necessary adjustments. Moving on to the book number 4, The Dip by Seth Godin. This is an incredibly short read, maybe only 100 pages long, but it addresses what I think is the most important question for any ambitious person. Should I quit? Or should I keep going? Godin breaks setbacks into 3 categories. The dip, a temporary challenge that you can work through. The cul-de-sac, a dead end that won't improve. And the cliff, a situation that will only get worse. Most of the time, we're dealing with dips or dead ends. And your job is to learn the difference. Why is this particularly relevant for your 20s? Because this is the decade when you're trying so many new things. You're exploring career paths, relationships, hobbies, new ways of living, and with every new pursuit, you'll inevitably hit obstacles. This book helped me understand that perseverance is important, but so is knowing when to pivot. Good things do take time, that's just reality. And while we keep hearing stories about an overnight success, the norm is building something meaningful one step at a time. What I particularly appreciate is how Godin talks about effort and experience. In the book, there is an example of a 40-year-old CEO, if I remember correctly, or some other salaryman with a very impressive title. And the point there is that this person didn't appear out of nowhere. He started building his career when he was very young, starting with relevant skills, relevant education, then putting in extra hours, extra work, going an extra mile to get to this stage and to get to this title. And this example is not in the book to glorify the grind, but to once again highlight that meaningful achievements, they really do take time. Moving on to the book number 5, Pre-Suasion by Robert Cialdini. Let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable. Influence. I know. The word manipulation has way too many negative connotations, but the thing is, that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to influence people around us every single day. When you're in a job interview, you're trying to influence the hiring manager's decision. On a date, you're trying to make a certain impression on the person you're with. Even when you're arguing with your parents and trying to stand up for your boundaries, guess what? You're still trying to influence their behavior. So it's not really about whether you're influencing or manipulating people. The real question is whether you're doing it consciously and ethically. This book teaches you how to communicate more effectively, which I believe is super important for all young people. At least I personally used to struggle with saying the wrong thing at the wrong time or not being able to get my point across at all. Now, in my late 20s, I'm much more equipped to read the room and talk to people the way they want to. So if you're like me and you struggle in social situations and you struggle to make new friends, for example, I highly recommend to give this book a try. Moving on to the next book, Immunity The Science of Staying Well by Dr. Jenna Macchiocchi.
And a disclaimer here, I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing the surname correctly. The author is of Italian origin, so I'm trying to mimic the Italian way of pronouncing it, but in any case, please have my apologies in advance.
This might be my absolute favorite house book, and here's why. It's practical without being preachy. Dr. Macchiocchi talks about immunity as something that needs balancing rather than boosting, which immediately made more sense to me than all the supercharge your immune system advice floating around. What I really liked about this book is the author and we speak the same language. We both are literally obsessed with rest. Dr. Macchiocchi highlights the importance of rest, especially when you're under stress or exercising heavily. She talks about needing 10 to 12 hours of sleep during challenging periods, which is not something you hear or see in your typical wellness content. I think we can all agree that the wellness industry can feel overwhelming at times with all its conflicting advice. This book cuts through this noise and focuses on the basics. Maintain a diverse and nutritious diet, move your body regularly but not excessively, try to or work on reducing stress, and prioritize rest. And in my own eyes, staying consistent with the basics is a more sustainable approach than following a complex regimen. Moving on to the final book, Gut, the Inside Story of Our Body's Most Underrated Organ by Julia Enders. Please raise your hand if you do not have complicated relationships with food. Yeah, I say 0 hands, just as I expected. Let's be honest, most of us have or had in the past complicated relationships with food. Some use it as a coping mechanism, others restrict it as a form of control. Very few of us have a completely neutral, healthy relationship with food, and those who do had to fight for it in the past. What I like about Julia Enders' approach is that she teaches you how to think about your digestive system with care and genuine curiosity rather than frustration or judgment. The book thoroughly but wittily explains how our gut health impacts our overall health, including mental health. The connection between gut bacteria and our mood is becoming more mainstream now, but when I first read it, it was mind-blowing to see how interconnected these systems are. I also really like how she defends potatoes. I'm so done with people demonizing potatoes as quote-unquote bad carbs, when in reality they're incredibly nutritious. And that's how the whole book is. It's great at debunking wellness myths while providing genuinely useful information. And this is it. These are the 7 books that have helped me survive my 20s so far, and I hope they will help you too. Let me know in the comment section your favorite non-fiction books, and as always, I wish you a great day and I will see you next time. Bye bye!